Okay, well, we have a fairly small group in this room, so I'm going to encourage you throughout their discussion. If you guys have questions, speak up. I'm going to say that you can interrupt them at any time. I'm sure they are agreeable to that. So, this is Christopher Basco. She is a licensed clinical social worker. Sarah talked about her just a little bit ago here in the Kansas City area. And we also have Dr. Stewart and Sandy Kriegel, who's an attorney. They're going to talk about all the different aspects that go into that embryo donation adoption process. So I'm super excited to hear what they have to say.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. And she's my clicker person. So when I say next slide, you know what to do.
hopefully get it done.
Right, okay. Well, good morning to all of you. Thank you so much for being here even on a rainy day. Appreciate your attendance. So we're going to be talking about embryo adoption and donation and the process involved in that family building decision. So next slide. So here we are. Aren't we just so cute? We're just so adorable. This is a picture taken a couple of years ago, and I think we've aged very well. Very well. This presentation is we initially did as a webinar for the Embryo Adoption Awareness Center out of Colorado. We did a national webinar. And so these slides are meant for prospective patients that are considering embryo adoption. Also adoption agencies that are thinking of putting the embryo adoption as part of their agency services, and for fertility practices. So we got a mixture of stuff that we're going to be presenting today. Okay, next slide. All right, so this is all about me as I start. Yes, I have been in practice since 1972, so if you add all those numbers up, you know how old I am. And actually, Sandy Kriegel and I share the same birthday, but I'm not going to say who's the oldest. I started working with Dr. Stewart in 1993. He was at KU and then eventually at Shawnee Mission. We started embryo adoption alternative in 2001. In 2003, we had triplets born on May 4th, 2003, so they'll be 10 years old now, so we have some history with our process. At that time, we were working with Snowflakes, one of the national embryo adoption programs at that time. So in 2006, we put our heads together, lots of different heads together, to talk about perhaps doing a program here locally, where we would have genetic families that are considering placing their embryos, and then we'd have adoptive families that's considering receiving the embryos. So we put a program together. In doing that, we had a long visit with the ethics committee at Shawnee Mission Medical Center. That was a cold December day. You remember that? That was in 2006. And if any of you remember the political climate of 2006, that's right when whether stem cell research could be done in the state of Missouri. So there was a lot of hot potatoes going on about this subject. The CEO of the hospital was at this meeting. Now, I didn't know who he was, thank goodness, otherwise I would have been more nervous and probably wouldn't talk quite as good. But I did have my winter boots on, so I wasn't prepared for that meeting. But out of that meeting, Shawnee Mission gave us our blessing and stated that we all have separate roles in how embryo donation and adoption will occur, and this became our plan for best practice. So we have genetic families that are referred to my practice as well as adoptive families. The match is actually made in my office, and then there's legal process provided, and then everyone goes back to Dr. Stewart's office where the embryos are just sitting there happily awaiting their new family. So we put that program together, and we're operating the same We also do child-centered focused, and many of you will probably be going to the other adoption presentation. And you're going to hear that all domestic adoptions, 95% of them are open adoption. So that's the framework that we use. So the genetic family selects the family that's going to be receiving their embryos, and then they have some form of communication, whether that's email, talking on the phone, texting, meeting together, because they're going to have children in common for the rest of their children's lives. So we want them to feel comfortable with each other. So the best practice results that children don't lose any of their families. They have their families intact. They will be able to have medical information on an ongoing basis, and then when they're figuring things out from the information about how they came to their family, they also have a donating family that can help with that understanding. Next slide. So here we have a flow. Now you know this is made by a marketing person, because I couldn't do any of these arrow things and all of that. But it shows the flow of how a program becomes official. And then again, the agency manages the program. Future communication between all parties is either done through my office, or they're identified families where they have each other's email address. But we set that out to begin with in the counseling before the decision is made. We have, so as an agency viewpoint, we have more clients coming to our practice, which is always a good thing. And then from the physician's office, there's an unbiased matching. So the physician's office doesn't have any blame if it doesn't work, or they chose somebody else over somebody else. So they're completely out of that responsibility. And the agency also provides counseling for both donors and the adopters. And then we have, are able to do the adoptive home study. So from an agency viewpoint, it's very beneficial to have this program. Next slide. So we have Dr. Daniel Stewart that's going to be talking.
From a medical standpoint, Chris has a slide that we're going to talk a little bit about. Definitely the emphasis is on patient care. Being able to provide services for patients is one of the things that we're focused on. Yes, with embryo donation, we have the opportunity to increase the number of embryos that we have stored. There was a 60 Minutes article a couple of years ago, and they guesstimate where there's about 500,000 embryos in the United States that are being stored. And the big question is, what are we going to do with all these embryos? Similarly, Dr. Weston, our lab director, will also tell you that it takes a bunch of space to have the liquid nitrogen tanks in the laboratory. You reach a point where storage is just space is also there. So being involved in embryo donation not only gives us an opportunity to help patients, but also gives us an opportunity to get embryos to couples and use. Clinics, primarily for those couples, the magic recipe is egg, sperm, and incubator. Having egg and sperm provided by another couple helps for those couples that don't have the magic recipe of themselves. It is something that is primarily for people that either don't want to rent fresh products or whatever. It's just another alternative that we can offer patients. One of the things that each clinic does is it gives us the opportunity to control the statistics. We have to report to the Society of Assisted Reproductive Technologies all the information regarding the embryo success rates, and gives us an opportunity to be able to report and be accountable for what it is that we're doing. Similarly, we also have to report embryos that come into our clinic from outside sources. questionnaires, like hair color, ethnic background, what are the characteristics of the couple receiving the embryos, how much variability are you willing to accept? And the computers can tell you there's 4 embryos that match your characteristics in a program somewhere in the United States. Literally, embryos can be shipped on liquid nitrogen. The UPS guy shows up on a doorstep, picks up the carrier, and they're shipped overnight. They're kept on liquid nitrogen, and then we get information about the embryos and get them into our tanks before any medical process begins. Next slide, please. Talking a little bit about motivations, why would we want to work with an adoption agency? Like Chris said, one of the things is by having different people involved in the process, there's not one person who winds up doing something that is not held accountable for their actions, especially since I've been on together and seen the national folks getting real fussy with us about some of the things that we do. By utilizing people who are not associated with the clinic, everything is kept at arm's length, meaning that secrets can't be kept within a particular clinic. New patients are directed by the clinic to the agencies. A lot of times patients will come in and say, "We heard about this, where do we start?" From a medical standpoint, we're probably first on the totem pole, but also last on the totem pole. We'll talk about the first part here in a bit. But when embryos are being adopted, I need to make sure that the legal aspects are taken care of as well as the counseling aspects are taken care of before I start any medical process. As we'll talk about in a second, the rules and guidelines put forth by the national folks have become much more restrictive as time goes by as well. Yes, by bringing new patients into the clinic by the agencies, the clinics are able to generate a little extra revenue. Well, that's probably secondary to the helping of the patient. That's one of the things the clinic benefits from. It is also good from a medical standpoint that the agencies are the ones that manage the program of the clinic. I don't want to be the one to say, I want these embryos to go to that couple. It's done on an outside part of the process. Unbiased matching, as Chris had mentioned, completed by the agency. It also reduces our administrative requirements and future liabilities. Once that couple is matched with embryos, I don't have to worry about other issues that are referred back to the people that are outside the clinic. Future communication between the parties is an agency responsibility, and again, not the clinic. We keep the medical facts about the embryos. As Chris said, probably about 95% of the adoptions are open adoption. In those cases of closed adoption down the road, if somebody needs an organ transplant or organ transplant or something like that, we still have to keep the medical part of the equation. Clinics continue to control, maintain the statistics, even though a lot of outside people are involved, transfer the embryos, and those. I also mentioned that we are at the top of the totem pole. At the top of the totem pole, as we take couples who are going through IVF, we start talking about embryo donation from day one. Part of the consent when we do an IVF is this a technique, this is a technology that is currently out there and available. Is this something that couples are interested in? That gives couples an opportunity to be thinking about the process long before they generate a bunch of embryos. They have their kids, and now it's kind of like, what do we do with these embryos that have been frozen? So couples are thinking about it long before we begin the medical process. And it's something that we want both partners to be 100% convinced of. What we don't want to do is generate a situation where someone wants to do this, but somebody else wants to do that. So the initial consent form for IVF talks specifically sure that you're working with programs that are following the guidelines, whether it be the American Association of Tissue Banks, the FDA has gotten in all kinds of rules and regulations that seem to change on a month-by-month basis in terms of how can we keep these embryos as safe as possible. A lot of infectious disease labs that have to be drawn before we even generate the embryos, before the embryos are released. One of the questions that arises is how long can we leave an embryo frozen and still use it to have a viable pregnancy? The short answer is, I don't know. There have been documented cases of sperm that's been frozen for over 20 years that generate pregnancies, but nobody's had embryos frozen for longer than
Maybe 15 years.
maybe 15 years. And so the question theoretically is, could your granddaughter give birth to her genetic great aunt? And while that is theoretically possible, that's also part of the reason why a lot of national health services over in Europe require that embryos be destroyed after 5 years. They don't want to have to worry about inheritance laws, especially over in Europe. What they don't want is 20 years from now, somebody knocking on the castle door saying, I'm the great-grandson of Earl of so-and-so on the castle. Part of the reason why the rules have changed. You want clinics that are, have accessibility to embryos. With a small program, you only have 2 embryos that are frozen and not part of the national network. You're going to be very limited in terms of what's going to be available, especially in our ever-moving, ever-growing, diverse population. It's nice to be able to know that there are embryos from around the country. Here in the Midwest, there's a little less ethnic diversity than on the coast. So a lot of programs that do big embryo donation have greater access to a variety of embryos. But we have a fair population that have been doing this for about 20 years, raising from about the last 15 of embryos that are available. One of the biggest things, assistance with the counseling and the legal issues. Sandy's going to talk a little bit about the legal aspects here in a minute. But there are more attorneys that are specializing in reproductive law in the same way that there are more social workers that are specializing in the reproductive aspects of counseling. What I typically tell patients is it's nice to work with somebody that knows what you're talking about. So if you walk into some attorney's office and say, we need an embryo contract, 99.9% of the time they'll look at you and go, oh. If you work in with somebody who's been working in the system for a long period of time, Sandy's office can go, okay, Kansas or Missouri, here's a template, these are what you need to fill in and go from there. I'm stealing Sandy's thunder. So the medical aspects, like I say, we're first on the eligible, but we're also last on the eligible. We want couples to be thinking about embryo donation long before they begin the medical process. But we're the last people involved in a transfer of adopted embryos because I need to make sure that both counseling and the legal aspects are done long before I do anything like that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Dr. Stewart. My name is Sandy Kriegel. I've been practicing law in Kansas City since the mid-'70s, and I've been doing adoptions with Chris since that time. And then 20-some-odd years ago, Chris said, let's start talking to some physicians about doing assisted reproductive technology, which from a lawyer standpoint are sperm donors, egg donors, gestational carriers, embryo donations. And I basically asked Chris, what was that? And she said, well, you'll learn. And so we did learn. We've been doing it together since, what did we say, 86? So we've been doing it a long time. The first slide, this was actually designed for different groups. I'm going to change this question around a little bit. Why would an attorney want to become involved in an embryo adoption? I'm going to change the question to, why would you want an attorney involved in embryo adoption? To a certain extent, good doctors, good social workers want you to do that, and I realize that when somebody's thinking about doing an embryo adoption, they don't run to their attorney first. They very often will talk to a social worker or certainly a physician. Physicians are very averse to getting involved in legal matters. Social workers like to stay out of the courthouse, and good lawyers want to keep their clients out of any kind of legal dilemmas. One of the problems with embryo adoptions in Kansas and Missouri is there's really no legal good answer as to what a court would do. What we do know is we know what courts will do around the country. We know how to put together agreements that we think are as good as they can possibly be. And we know there's wood somewhere around. We've got a 100% success rate, at least from the legal standpoint of not getting ourselves involved when we have this protocol that we put together where we have a good physician, a good social worker, and a knowledgeable attorney involved in the process. What you want to make sure as an intended parent is that you're sophisticated in who you work with, whether it is a physician who has an outstanding success rate in embryo transfers, as Dr. Stewart does and Chris Probasco has. And you also want to make sure you get hooked up with somebody that knows what they're doing. We facetiously in our office talk about who our best clients are and who our clients are that aren't so good. And we say this tongue-in-cheek. Our best clients are the ones that come in, ask for advice, don't follow our advice, and then we have to clean up the mess afterward. Because we can charge them at the beginning, and then we can charge them again when they don't follow our advice. And again, it's saying this very much tongue-in-cheek. Next best clients are the ones who don't come in and ask us, they get into trouble, and then we straighten it out. That's the typical scenario of attorney dealing with a client. And the third client tend to be the most sophisticated consumers. They tend to be our business, corporate clients who have lots of experience with various legal issues, and they come into the office before the problem arises. We put together agreements, and they very seldom come back with problems because they've been proactive. And it's that third kind of client that our embryo transfer intended parent clients have been, largely because of the protocols that Shawnee Mission set up years ago and that Chris and Dr. Stewart have been promulgating. And that is, we really want to get everything wrapped up as tightly as we possibly can before a baby is born, and make sure that before there's any kind of medical procedure taken, that there's comprehensive agreements. One of the things one of the reasons that Dr. Stewart has been so successful in his statistics as far as the embryo transfer is that he's very, very picky as to the type of embryos that he will recommend to his patients. And when we work with certain national organizations like Snowflakes that facilitate embryo transfers, they don't even ask me anymore. They write into their contracts Dr. Stewart's language that he has the right to look at the medical records regarding the freezing and the creation of those embryos. And from those medical records, if I'm saying this correctly, Dr. Stewart, you have a pretty good idea of whether these are going to be viable embryos. And it makes me look good, it makes Chris look good, but most importantly, from the intended parent standpoint, it's a critical matter that you want drafted into your agreement. Now, you may hack off the agency a little bit that you're working with, but better that than having to go through numerous embryo transfer procedures that are very expensive. Agencies get over it. They usually, with a little push from me, will make sure that that language is in their agreement. And there's numerous other things like that come up. If we go to the next slide. Let's just look at this from your perspective. I'm not so concerned about the clinics and the agencies donors, those are all important, but you all are prospective adopted parents or intended parents, as the phrase goes. What we want to make sure is that when a baby's born through an embryo transfer, 99% out of the time it's a husband and wife. The wife is the one who's carrying the baby, but the baby has no genetic relationship to either her or her husband. Sometimes we'll use a gestational carrier. That's a little bit more rare, but what we want to establish is that upon the birth of that child, we want to get a court order, at least the protocols that we've been following, is not only to assign contracts before there's been any transfer done, but after a baby's born, even though the baby is born to the intended mom, and even though the Uniform Parentage Act makes an assumption in all 50 states that the woman to whom a child is born is the biological mother, and even though the Uniform Parentage Act also says that the man to whom she is married at the time that she gives birth to the child is presumed to be the father, the problem is that the genetic parents ever wanted to contest that. The first thing that a judge does today in a paternity proceeding is order DNA testing. And DNA testing would not go the way we would want it to go for intended parents. So we make sure that our contracts are very, very solid about making sure everybody consents to a subsequent adoption, and really without exception when we've done that, the intended parents have been successful on both the Kansas and Missouri side in getting courts to grant an adoption. Now, the first few times we did this, judges would question us as to, well, she gave birth to the child and she may not be the genetic mother, but she's presumed to be the mother. Why do you really need to do this? And we'd explain to the judge that, Judge, you are the one under Kansas law or Missouri law that has the ultimate right to make a decision as to the custody of a child. And there is some question as to who really is the mother and who really is the father, because the rules in all 50 states are generally that you cannot contract for the custody of a child. If you're in a typical divorce situation and there's 3 kids, and the husband says, okay, I get the 2 boys, you get the 1 girl, and they put together an agreement. That agreement's not enforceable unless you have a court order. That doesn't mean that you can't. What does that mean? 10 more minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I thought maybe you were being real friendly. Okay. I'll talk quickly. So what we want to make sure is that we followed up with an adoption. All the local courts and all the counties surrounding the Kansas City area have been very supportive of this. They understand it. It is incurred, but it's one that once they understand the legal risks, they very often want to do. There is a federal adoption tax credit available out there, and there's a real controversy as to whether or not embryo adoptions are eligible for the federal adoption tax credit. We have been very successful in arguing with the IRS on behalf of our clients that you can get that tax credit, although it is a mixed bag and some lawyers very much disagree with us. It is a financial incentive, and there's interesting questions of what percentage of what dollars in the process that you can use to actually make yourself eligible for that tax credit. Let's go to, I think it's the last slide. How to select an maternity assist with the, you basically want somebody who's got some experience. If you're having your appendix removed, you do not want to be the first appendectomy that the physician has done. You want to be the 500th appendectomy. Discuss with your physician, discuss with your social worker. It's different for every place in the United States. You may be dealing with somebody who's very knowledgeable about California law or Massachusetts law. But when an embryo adoption is done locally, you really want somebody from the Kansas City area that's familiar with the judges who ultimately will be making the decisions to whether to grant an adoption or not. We feel real strongly that unless you're in a state that has specific statutes that make a determination as to paternity and maternity, if you want to have a court order after the baby's born. If you don't get a court order, there's always a question in my mind whether or not someone clients are spending less than a couple $1,000s in legal fees at the very beginning. It depends on what program you get hooked up with. If you're thinking of the Snowflakes program, I mean, I know that contract in my head, I have it memorized. They know what changes I want. Sometimes when a client comes in, so they're working with Snowflakes, I'll get an email from Snowflakes saying, okay, I've already made the changes that you always ask for. So it doesn't tend to be real expensive. And then when you do the adoption later on down the road, you're going to spend $2,000 to $3,000 on the adoption.
5,000.
Yeah, but it's up front, you're talking about $1,500, $2,000, and then, you know, it's well over a year later typically. I mean, people are thrilled to pay the money to do the adoption for obvious reasons.
And what about the,
Well, we kind of think it's about $12,000 for one transfer with all of this involved, and then any additional transfers would be additional dollars. Does that sound right? Right, if we had everybody together.
The general rule is not cheap. And what I tell patients is that's not 12 grand that goes in my pocket by any means. But the number of people that are involved in the process, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. And that's evolved over time. As Sandy pointed out, rules and regulations, the FDA requirements for labs that have to be done. There's a lot of different things. It's just a few process that can be done. But a general rule of thumb is you need to have at least $15,000 readily available. You're probably not going to use all of that, but how does that compare to a traditional adoption? I think varies depending on the program that you're working with.
Can be less, yes. Yes.
Question, a couple of questions. You mentioned freezing the embryos in the lifespan of how long to be frozen. Does the success rate of the transfer make a difference over the time of how long it's been frozen?
As Sandy pointed out, we've had some difficult situations in the past. In the early days of freezing embryos, we weren't very good at it. And we could only keep embryos alive in the laboratory for 1 or 2 days. And so it was freezing them. And those are embryos that, if they're bad embryos going into the embryo, they're going to be bad embryos. And I'll be the last one to argue the ethics associated with it. From a medical standpoint, in the same way, just taking the negative sperm not all over time, we tend to declare the strongest, healthiest embryos are going to survive long-term in life, 4, 5, 6 days. And what we've learned over the years is that strong, healthy embryos can be strong, healthy embryos more likely to grow. And some programs have a different belief in terms of what stage of the process is likely to be. And Snowflake's general philosophy is no embryo behind. What we've learned over the years is that embryos that were frozen 15 years ago at the 2-step stage aren't as successful as embryos that have been frozen 2 or 3 years at the last stage. And so when I look at an embryo report, I'm going to look and see, is this a quality IVF program, or was this Joe's Barbara IVF show? Because the quality of embryos is going to be a little bit different. Now, one of the things that we try real hard is to respect each individual couple's belief system. And part of the reason why the contracts are written long before we begin any medical process is to do whatever is appropriate for the individual couple's standards.
There's very good laws in most states about sperm donation. Basically, if a woman is inseminated, who's married, and her husband consents to the insemination, it's a little more complicated than that. But there's no need to do any follow-up legal work. It's done in a physician's office in some states. So the sperm donation is done properly according to statute. It really kind of cuts the lawyer out of it. Bad thing, but good for clients. Egg donation there's very little legislation in most of the states about egg donation. We deal with egg donation as a contract, passing back and forth between as like property. But we usually do what's called a step-parent adoption or step-parent type of adoption with an egg donation. Typically, Dr. Stewart, who was dealing with an egg donation, would do it in vitro with a donated egg and the husband's sperm and the child. The embryo would be implanted typically in the uterus of the wife. So she'd give birth to a child that was genetically her husband's and an egg donor. We take the position in that legally we do an adoption very much like a step-parent adoption. And then with an embryo donation, we take the position that it's just like, or at least for legal purposes, as likely as you can to a traditional adoption where you adopt a child from an unwed mother with that legal parent. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
I'm gonna,
Real quick, we've been freezing sperm for decades. Got it down pretty good. But when you're freezing 20 million sperm, you're going to lose some of the freeze-thaw process. You still got one. An egg is the one thing that we still don't have a good grasp on freezing and thawing egg. So that's part of the reason why egg is a little bit different. Embryos will get better at freezing and thawing, but society's not showing up the technology. Other questions?
I have a question. If I were interested in an embryo adoption and I was matched, had that worked out, at what point, could I decide, say I wanted to do PGS, would it be mine at that point to decide to do that, or would that need to be written into a contract?
Could we do it technically? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why you want to do that. You just run in play screen?
Well, you know you have a decent shot to proceed with the financial aspects of that. You've got a 50-50 chance. You basically know it's wasting your time.
They're wanting us to wrap up here pretty quick. Where along the spectrum do you want to spend money and change your statistics? Technically, could we do that on a donated embryo thought through the biopsy? From a technical standpoint, we can't turn that around quick enough to be able to tell you before we have to put the embryo down. Could we, as indicated, biopsy the embryo, refreeze it, and rethaw it? Well, some of them aren't going to survive the freeze-thaw process. Oh, by the way, you got another $8,000 on the genetic aspect of it. Yes, technically that's doable. Is it cost-effective for the statistics that you're associated with it? Not for these processes.
And I don't think we'll have donors that would be willing to do that because the embryos did that, so that would have to.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering if they would be
Yeah, they
in
don't
that,
agree.
they would have to agree that. It wouldn't be once they pick me, I can do what I want, and now they're.
I think we have a couple other questions. If you guys don't mind sticking around just outside, if you guys that have questions, we'll just catch up.
And if you guys, I'm sorry, but if you need to go to the
Yeah, thank
restroom,
you so much.
just feel free.